Start by unpacking your wet polishing kit from the toolbox it was shipped in. Note the toolbox it is shipped in may not look like the one shown in the video. Remove the DVD. The waterproof apron. The wet polishing pads. The wet grinder. The wet polishing pad holder. The hose connector. The batteries for the radio toolbox. Pick up the grinder and attach the 4-inch Velcro pad holder. Attach the wrench and hand tighten. Pick up and attach the hose connection to the wet feed grinder. Note, this connector will allow you to attach to any garden hose. Unpack the wet polishing pad, starting with the 50 grit, the 100 grit, the 300 grit, the 500 grit, the 1000 grit, the 2000 grit, and the 3000 grit. There are other items that you will need that are not included in the kit, but can be purchased from Master Wholesale. C-clamps, a piece of wood, hearing protection, safety glasses, and dust masks. Also, a thin lined water connector will be used in place of connecting a garden hose directly to the connector that is shipped with the tool. This can be purchased from Master Wholesale. This skinny hose is much easier to use than a garden hose. Just simply attach the end of this to your garden hose and you're ready to go. Lay your tiles out. Take the small piece of wood and lay it over the top of the tiles. Attach the C-clamps to the wood to hold the tiles firmly in place while you are polishing. In real life, I would use a longer piece of wood and polish 6 to 7 tiles at a time. Note, never attach a C-clamp directly to the granite surface, as this could cause serious scratching. Once the C-clamps are attached, you are ready to begin polishing. Lay out your polishing pads in order. We will be attaching the 50 grit to the wet polisher first. Adjust the water till it dribbles as shown. Turn on the grinder and begin polishing from left to right. The important thing with the 50 grit is to remove all saw marks and imperfections from the face of the tile. Remove the 50 grit and move on to the 100 grit. It is important with the 100 grit to make sure to remove all saw marks and imperfections prior to moving on. Work this down from left to right. When you are sure all saw marks and imperfections are moved, you will be ready to move on. The next grit will be the 300 grit. Attach the 300 grit and begin to polish from left to right. It is important while flat polishing to hold the grinder at a 90-degree angle as you move through the grits. This will make sure that the flat polish remains just what we call it, a flat polish. Holding at different angles will result in an angled finish, not desired for this process. Move on to the 500 grit. You'll be ready to move on from the 500 grit after the stone becomes visibly smooth. No scratches, imperfections should be visible after this pat. On some softer stones, if you dry the stone off, you may even begin to notice a slight polish. Note, you may quit polishing anytime the finish is satisfactory. Move on to the 1000 grit. Begin polishing from left to right. On most stones, if you were to dry the stone off, you would definitely notice a polish. Again, you may discontinue polishing anytime you are satisfied with the finish. Move on to the 2000 grit. Continue working the stone from left to right, holding the angle grinder at a 90-degree angle. Again, you may discontinue polishing anytime you are satisfied with the polish. Move on to the 3000 grit for harder and darker stones. Continue polishing